Well, guys, I haven't really been to the movies in a while, but there was definitely a movie that caught my attention, and I think we all know what it is because everyone's talking about it. The funny thing is I wonder if the marketing strategy for this movie was to make it sound dangerous and controversial. Because, for my opinion, one of the main reasons I went and saw this movie is because people would not stop talking about it, and I just had to know. Like, I just had to know if this movie really holds up, and or if it really was as bad and dangerous as people said. Now, for this video, it's really hard to discuss this movie without going into spoilers. That's because for me, um, I went into this movie knowing very little, and it really, I think, amplified my experience. I didn't expect a lot of things to happen in this movie, but I also wasn't sure what kind of Joker they were going for. I didn't know if they were going to do. I didn't know if this was basically going to be a movie where Joker does a lot of crimes and does like a whole bunch of different things as the Joker that would have a climax where he has to defeat like an opponent as the Joker. That's kind of what I thought would happen. Sort of like a Breaking Bad style story. That's kind of what I thought this movie was going to be. But I don't want to say anything more if you haven't seen it yet. And all I will say is that it is shot very, very well. The cinematography and the camera angles are done so good. Honestly, it's. I want more superhero movies to be treated with this amount of respect. And the music cues and everything, it definitely feels really good. The sound design is very good in this movie. And all in all, I have to say the story, might not be the best ever story in movie history, but for a comic book movie, it was pretty good. It's like this isn't my favorite comic book movie, but this is pretty damn good. And when it comes to R-rated ones, I like this one more than Logan and Deadpool and Watchmen. I mean, sue me if you think those are like the untouchable movies. I know Deadpool's got a huge cult following. I think Deadpool's a little overrated in my opinion. I'm kind of sick of Deadpool. I think two movies is fine, but I think that from now I wouldn't mind if he was toned down a bit and less silly and wacky, and we could see him more in like minor roles in other Marvel movies. That would be fine with me, or minor roles in X-Men movies. I don't really want him to be. I don't want to watch Deadpool 3. I think it just gets old after a while. But when it comes to R-rated comic book movies, I think the Joker might be my favorite, and I think Logan or Watchmen. Watchmen was my favorite, but then I rewatched it much later in life and realized that I kind of put it on a high pedestal when I was like a teenager when I first saw it, and I really just like the book. The movie actually does so many things that I don't like that I really just prefer the book. Uh, I think Zack Snyder. I praised Zack Snyder for making Watchmen so close to the book, but honestly, I think someone else could have done a better job. Now, the more I think about it, there's a lot about Watchmen I don't like in the movie. And so basically, at the end of the day, I think my favorite R-rated movie that's a superhero movie is Joker, which is calling it a superhero movie. It barely classifies, but I consider Guardians of the Galaxy a superhero movie, which is barely a superhero movie. So I'm going to consider the Joker barely a superhero movie. It counts. And boy, oh boy, does it treat itself very serious. It's very realistic. It's done with a lot of grace and respect. And that's really important. To me, this feels like a really good movie. I think people are going to be talking about this one for a long time. I think this is one that's going to be cool that people have in the collections. I think it's going to be one of those edgy horror movies that are gonna. It's going to be talked about for a long time. You know, a lot of people still talk about A Clockwork Orange to this day, stuff like that. You know, people love like certain R-rated movies to have a certain feel to them, and I think Joker is going to be one of those R-rated movies that people are always going to be like, this one matters. Um, though, do I think it again? Do I think it's better than like all those are on that same level? No, but I do think for our generation and our time, this is a pretty good one. Again, I wouldn't even, I don't know where to begin to compare it with other R-rated movies. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump into spoilers. Sorry if you only got to see 4 minutes of this video, but you really should watch the movie. I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, what else can I say? I think the movie's worth seeing. If you're interested, and you shouldn't be watching this if you're not interested. If you're not interested, I don't know why you're here, but if you really are interested, but you're not sold on going to see it because you think it'll be a shit show, I guess you can watch the spoilers, and I will try to sell you on it. But basically, I'm gonna get into spoilers right here, right now. So, all I'm gonna say really is that the reason why this is considered a spoiler, because I'm not gonna just say specific details and say that was good, that was good. What I will say is that This movie has a lot of plot twists, and I didn't think all of them. I didn't think it would do as many plot twists as it did. And I think for a character study style movie, which means that we follow the Joker mostly, it was done really, really well. So this is exactly what kind of this is the kind of twists and turns I want to see. So um, I didn't expect everything in this movie, but every time the movie did something where I was like, this makes no sense, this is really stupid, this is like a generic superhero movie with stupid bullshit in it, it would hit you with a dose of reality, and it was really cool. Every time like I got mad at the movie, it was a plot twist the whole time, and I really liked it. I really liked that it kept me going along for the ride, and even though I knew things didn't add up, like it just I never could catch it, and I like that a lot about this movie. um, and then the other things I'll say about this movie is that some of the things don't make the perfect amount of sense. Some of the things you kind of have to infer, like why is he like I don't know. The whole some things are kind of like you can tell they only happen because it's a Joker movie and it's about the Joker. They tried to explain some of it, like he has a nervous laugh, and the reason why is because he was abused as a child, and which was one of the most gut wrenching scenes in the movie when you find out the information. I actually did get pretty emotional, and you could say it's a cheap shot. Like, of course I'm gonna get emotional when they talk about a child being abused. You could say, oh, it's just a movie, it's just a movie, but because that comes up halfway through the movie when you are trying to understand who this man is, because he's kind of mysterious who he is when you're learning more about this man, and when it gets to that part, even though this is the Joker from Batman, it does make you feel sympathetic because it is a very it's just hard news to hear, you know. Again, I think it probably would be no matter what. Like if you bring up child abuse, like it's gonna make you sad because child abuse is such a no one thinks child abuse is like a light subject, everyone's gonna get a little emotional about child abuse, and you could say it's like a cheap shot to invoke that, but I think in this movie it worked a little bit because there was a strange relationship between him and his mom, and as the movie goes on, it kind of gets like, it's I don't know. You have to make your own opinions, I guess. But for me, it worked for me a lot. I think I really liked that part of the movie. Maybe not everyone will agree. Again, some people might call it a cheap shot. And a lot of people also seem to think that this movie wants to make you sympathetic for the Joker for a reason, because they want you to be sympathetic towards his cause. Now, I've read Batman the Killing Joke. It's one of my favorite stories ever, and I know like there's a lot of controversy about that story. Even Alan Moore has said he regrets writing a lot of parts about it. He says he kind of went too far, and it's a little bit misogynistic against Batgirl and stuff like that. That story is very controversial, and I think that it might not have handled everything in the most mature way possible. But at the end of the day, I still found it to be a very profound story, and the immature parts are not the main point of the story. The most mature parts of the story are about Batman and Joker's relationship and how it has to end. And oh my gosh, like that part is why I love the story so much. You could take all the Batgirl stuff out of it. It's a little edgy, and I'm not that into it anyway. But the important parts of that story I think are really good. And when you read that story, the Joker has a very sympathetic approach to him, where it's very laid out, where he's talking about. We get to see glimpses of his origin. It's very like sympathetic. He has a pregnant wife who dies. So he loses the child as well, and he just kind of needed the money to save them, and he ends up getting knocked into a vat of acid thanks to Batman. So, Batman's the one who threw him in it. So like, there's a very sympathetic angle being taken in that story. When it comes to this story, it really completely dodges the idea of the everyman character just having a bad day, which is what the Killing Joke was about. And the Killing Joke Joker just was a normal guy who just had a really bad day and decided to become an anarchist. And it kind of works. It kind of works in that story, but even the Joker says in that story he doesn't even remember what made him who he is. So I think the audience gets to see who he is, but in the reality, we don't actually really know who he is. So, or not in the reality, but Joker himself doesn't really know who he is. We get to see, but I don't think it's like he doesn't even know, and that's kind of that idea is kind of repeated again in Dark Knight. And that's why Dark Knight is a very good movie because I I would still personally say that Dark Knight's my favorite depiction of Joker so far, at least in movies. When I'm not talking about Arkham Asylum or the cartoons or anything, but in the movies, I'd say probably Dark Knight's probably my favorite version of Joker. And to be fair, the 1989 Batman, that's a really good version of Joker too. But those Jokers work really well as a foil to Batman. This Joker isn't a foil to Batman. This is a Joker movie about Joker. It has nothing to do with Batman at all whatsoever. And I think it works really, really well. His look, the look they gave him when he's wearing the makeup that's in like, like the movie poster where he's dancing on the stairs and stuff. It's a really good look. It barely even looks like him when you see him in his human form, or a human form, like without the makeup. When you see Walking Phoenix, just like his normal face and body, he looks very haggard. He looks very, weak and meek, like he's not going to be able to do anything. And whenever he's wearing the suit and he's got the makeup on, he looks way more full of life and energy. He looks like he's in good actual shape. It really is like a transformation when he's in like the makeup. And this movie's going for the idea of this Joker didn't fall into the acid. This is a real human Joker. What I liked about Dark Knight also was that Joker, they didn't really talk about his origin at all. They're just like, he's just the Joker. Like, the origin's not really, it wouldn't matter even if you knew his origin and told it to him, he probably wouldn't even care. He'd be like, I don't give a fuck. That version of Joker was, there's the iconic scene where he like burns all the money, stuff like that. Like, this guy is just a fucking nut job. Like, which kind of, you might say might makes him like a one-dimensional villain, but he's so fun to see on the screen. And it's kind of cool that you get to make up your own origin story or backstory, or use any prior knowledge that you have of the Joker, and you're able to kind of apply it to that. Like, you could really go in any direction with that version of the Joker. This version of Joker is definitely like, the story it's here to tell you is that it's not to make him mysterious at all. And I think it worked in the sense that it's a very entertaining movie that keeps you on the edge of your feet with nothing but drama. It's not like a superhero movie typically has a bunch of action sequences to keep you interested until it gets to the end of the movie. Like, for example, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, but Guardians of the Galaxy starts off with a fight scene. Then when the characters all meet, it's a fight scene. Then when they go to prison, it's a fight scene. Then when they go to the planet to sell the stone to the collector, there's eventually a big fight scene. And then they prepare for a big fight scene for the climax, and then it's a big fight scene. So Guardians of the Galaxy is just nothing but fight scenes over and over and over. And guess what? That's a lot of the Marvel superhero movies. It's just fight scene, fight scene, fight scene. This movie, whenever intense drama happens that involves violence, it's sparse. It's just few and far between. And when it does happen, you're like, holy shit! Like, you're kind of like, you remember like, oh yeah, this guy's the Joker. Like, he's gonna kill people. And that's the thing about this movie. This is not your typical Joker. This is a very different kind of Joker. But that's not a bad thing. It works really well in this movie. Now, I have a hard time picturing this Joker fighting against Batman. But at the very end of the movie, I will say he did seem like the actual Clown Prince himself. And as he starts getting confidence while falling further and deeper into his insanity. And that's an angle that's done very subtly that I think is very interesting about this movie. To the point where, it this movie was like really intense and makes you nauseous while watching it because it is sickening. There is a lot of depressing things. What I told my friend was it's a depressing movie and then there's nothing happy at the end. Like, it's just depressing the entire time. And like, the Joker doesn't get like in a good movie, or not a good movie, but I'm saying like in a happy movie, he would get his rehabilitation at the end. He would learn a lesson. In this movie, Joker doesn't really learn a lesson. He just kind of decides to be a piece of shit, and he's like, okay, if I become a supervillain, then I will be happy. And it kind of just shows It's kind of more of like the system is failing him versus like it's not so much that society deserves it, which I'll get into the controversy at the end of the video. But one of the concerns before this video came out or before this movie came out was that it was going to prop up incels and make a sympathetic like killer who would make shooters have like a side to them that you could believe in. But I really don't think this movie did that at the end of the day. I think this movie was just a really interesting, well done drama with some violent scenes in it that was really exciting to watch. And it's kind of like a hard movie to digest because it is a sad movie that goes over sad subject matter. And at the end of the day, like it's not a happy movie by any means. It's definitely not a movie for children. It's definitely not a movie for impressionable people who might not understand the point of it. I would say it would take a mature. I think a teenager could handle it, but I would say a mature teenager, not like a really stupid Beavis and Butthead style 15-year-old teenager who hasn't quite gained human empathy yet, who doesn't quite understand more complex thoughts yet. He probably might get the wrong impression from this movie, but I don't think it would lead to anything bad. I don't think it would lead to any harm. You know, you could say that about a lot of movies. That an impressionable kid might do something stupid based off of it. I mean, look at all the raunchy comedy movies that are basically glorifying sex. I mean, you shouldn't show that to horny teenage boys either, because they're just gonna totally get the wrong impression and think they can talk to girls in a stupid way. You know, but it's not up to the movie industry to censor itself. It's up to we have to trust our society and our community to guide these kids, but also just because they see a movie and they do something stupid for 1 year doesn't mean or say stupid stuff because they probably won't even do anything doesn't mean they won't unlearn that and become more mature as they become adults. It's not like once you see something bad at the wrong age, you're poisoned for life. That's not how it works, which is why this movie's controversy is very silly to me. You know what? I think I'm not even gonna make. I don't think I'm gonna talk about the controversy in this video. I think I'd rather just make a whole another video talking about the controversy because I don't want to tack it on to a review video when people might not want to even see the review because they've already seen the movie or because they haven't seen it yet. So all I will say is, but I mean, obviously I disagree with the controversy greatly. I think it's very stupid and silly. And people who are still going on about it after the movie already came out, I can't believe how confident and how confident they are in being so wrong and ignorant. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But that's neither here nor there. I will say the Joker movie works really good if you know some stuff about Batman. Obviously, the movie kind of tells you everything you need to know. Like it kind of tells you what you need to know about Thomas Wayne, and it kind of which is good because Thomas Wayne's not the most popular Batman character. This is probably the first appearance or the first ever like depiction of Thomas Wayne that wasn't just instantly being killed. This is probably the first version of Thomas Wayne that actually like has like a role, he's actually like a character in the movie. Thomas Wayne does more in this movie than Bruce Wayne does, and that's a really good That's a really good angle for this movie. The only thing that was really freaking weird was Bruce Wayne as a kid being such a big part of this movie. And you might say, "Oh, well, it was a little part." Well, it was a little part, but it was not like it was still like a little bit too much in my opinion. I don't know if I really wanted the Joker to meet Bruce Wayne as a kid and like confront him. It's kind of weird, especially because Joaquin Phoenix kind of makes Joker look like he's well into his like mid 30s at this point. He doesn't look like a young 20-year-old man, which I could accept Joker being like 10 years older than Batman or something like that, but I don't know if I could consider him. Batman looks like he's like not even 10 yet. Batman looks like he's like 7, 6, 5, young. He doesn't even look like he's 10. And then Joker looks like he's like in his mid 30s or possibly early 40s or late 30s or something. To the point where, the age difference is just a little bit too big for me, in my opinion. It'd make more sense if honestly, it would make more sense if Batman and Joker were like around the same age, but I don't know. So I don't really ever know like what age Joker is. All I ever know is that usually in the stories, Batman's the one who creates Joker, and Joker's whole angle, his whole shtick is saying anyone could go crazy, anyone could be like me, even Batman can be like me, you know, there's very little difference between me and you and stuff like that, which some ridiculous boomers latch on to. But it doesn't make the character any less interesting just because boomers say really silly things based off the Joker and think the Joker's a cool character. At the end of the day, what makes Joker a good character is the fact that he has this flawed ideology that Batman can easily explain and say, "No, you're dumb." Like easily explain, be like, "No, Joker, you're just dumb." Like, and that's what makes this. It makes it really cool when Batman and Joker are foils to each other, which I think is why they still included Batman in the story because Joker is the most important Batman villain. It's just how it will always be. Joker is the most iconic supervillain of all time, so giving him a movie makes a lot of sense because like I said, if any supervillain would get a movie by himself, it should be Joker. You could say, well, Venom got a movie. Well, Venom's not a straight up supervillain. He's also an anti-hero. In this movie, Joker doesn't do anything heroic. It's not like Suicide Squad where they made the villains do something good where they became heroes temporarily. This movie is about Joker just being Joker, and I think it's done really well at the end of the day. So, any other points I have to say about Joker? Um, Walking Phoenix, Robert De Niro, basically everyone in this movie did a really good job. Um, I really thought Thomas Wayne was really good. That was a good depiction of Thomas Wayne. A lot of the movie captured the time period really, really well. It's definitely a little bit of a period piece. At first, I was kind of confused if this was like a modern movie or not. And it's definitely like a period piece. So, yeah, I think it's a. I have lots of praises to say about this movie. And when it first ended, one guy in my theater clapped, but it wasn't a full theater, but he clapped. I literally said out loud, and you guys might say, "Oh, he's making this up to sound tough." I didn't yell it, but I did literally say out loud, "Who the fuck is clapping?" And I heard him stop clapping. It was one guy. He was like, and he just stopped. And he probably didn't even hear me, but he might have because again I was not being quiet, and he probably also stopped because no one else joined in. Because why do people clap at the end of movies anyway? I don't know. But to clap at the end of Joker when it was such a the ending was about like basically again it's not about society. Society doesn't deserve the Joker. It's more like society just failed Joker, and we need to do better as a society to prevent people like the Joker. And so why would you clap for that ending? Why would it's not even like Joker wins at the end. Like yes, he wins in the sense that he finds himself, his quote unquote true self, where he becomes the villainous murderer we all know and love, the Joker. But does that really mean anything? Does someone really love him? So yeah, I think I'm going to give this movie a score first. I think I'm gonna give this movie a score, but because I gave games number scores out of 10, so I'm having a hard time deciding my score about Joker though because it's not really about that. It's not really the kind of movie where you can just give it a number and be like that's what it is. That's what it is. Because I really liked it, but it's like when I first left the theater, I really didn't know what to think. Like when I sat through it all, I was like, wow, that's a thing. What they said in Red Letter Media that was a really good point was that the Batman is a rich guy whose parents get taken away by criminals, and he decides he wants to like go out and stop the criminals. Well, Joker is a very poor man who lives he lives in very harsh conditions, and his medications being cut, his therapy is being cut. The funding for all of his mental health programs have been cut. He can't trust anyone. Everyone's mean to him. Everyone's shitty to him because his neighborhood is also full of criminals. But he blames the rich. He blames the rich people for letting the conditions of the poor people in Gotham getting as bad as they got. And he says he wants Thomas Wayne to come and see how bad it is. And he hates Thomas Wayne because of it. Also because his mom likes Thomas Wayne, which is a really good way to link it all together. Stuff like that. Just like they tried to explain why he's a clown because his mom always told him that he would bring nothing but joy to and happiness to everyone. So that's why his mission is to be like a clown to bring joy and happiness. Um, and yeah, it's kind of weird. He starts a movement which seemed really weird and convenient. Everyone wore the same clown masks and did their makeup the same way as the Joker, which again seems very weird and convenient. It's not like there was video of the Joker's face that could have shown the fact that he was the Joker. What I did like about this movie was it got to a point where the police were trying to investigate and nail down who the Joker was. And if this was like a police movie drama, there would probably be multiple leads, and you'd see one guy, and you would get to hear them behind the scenes saying, "I think it's this guy." But because this movie is a character study and it's mostly focused on the Joker, you have to think very carefully about what the police are doing whenever they're not on screen. And they interview the Joker like 3 times, and or they keep trying to find him to investigate him more. And eventually, at the very end of the movie, when he's in his clown suit, they say, "Hey, stop! We want to talk to you," and Joker just starts running. It's like at this point, the police know that Joker is the guy, especially because he literally just murdered someone and he let one of the witnesses go on purpose because they're friends, and that witness probably reported him for murdering. I mean, for fuck's sake. So the police probably know for a fact at this point that he's the killer. Not to mention his mom died in the hospital, which maybe they wouldn't have connected that to him, but I mean, yeah. Either way, lots of people are dying. People who cross the Joker. So I really liked that angle at the end of the movie where Joker, it was like the police knew, but they couldn't stop him in time. And then no one was able to tell the TV station because the only 2 cops who knew were like these 2 detectives, and no one else really knew yet that he was the guy because they got beat down in action. And so when it got to the big climax of the movie, it still felt really realistic. I sometimes feel like when crime movies have these fantastic crimes where things just seem to get really lucky, it's kind of like, okay, that would never happen. He'd get found out and stuff like that. I think what made Breaking Bad so good was that they really paced that show out to make it to where the characters were being so safe that they would be able to escape the police in many, many ways. It didn't really feel unrealistic till maybe towards the end a little bit. But when it came to Joker, it feels really realistic the whole time. Like, he did some really fucked up stuff, and there was really no way out of it. Like, he was going down for his crimes. But on his way out for going down for his crimes, he managed to really find himself. You know, his original plan was to kill himself in the studio, which would have been a really good angle. But I think everyone here knew that Joker wasn't going to kill himself. Though part of me in the back of my mind was thinking, this is a different kind of movie. I mean, we already saw Joker confront Bruce Wayne, and he even touched his face and put his fingers in Bruce Wayne's mouth. So, what's here to say, like, what if this version of the Joker does kill himself, and then this Joker in this version never meets Batman or something like that? Lots of things could happen. So, but I was mostly certain Joker wasn't going to actually off himself, and I was more certain that the actual climax would happen. So, I mean, it's definitely a scary moment. It's one that maybe not everyone will be able to identify with, but I'm hoping they at least understand why the character does it. And I think a lot of people will understand why things happen in this movie that happened. Again, this is probably the most realistic take on Batman yet, ever done in a film, maybe even done in comic book. But the reason I say that is because this movie doesn't really show Batman. It shows Bruce Wayne as a kid. So it's really hard to do Batman in a realistic way. But either way, this version of the origin is a really cool idea because it took a huge step back. I think someone who's a huge Batman fan would probably try to make it a little bit more accurate to how it happens in the comics, make Joker accurate to the comics. So this is one of the weird cases where I would say the fact that it's a bunch of Hollywood people and people who work on movies exclusively who took a step away from the comics and tried to do their own thing that really had, very little comic inspiration and had more to do with what kind of movie could we make based off a character, and they kind of broke the Joker down to the very bare essential key elements that make the Joker who he is. So at the end of the day, it's a movie about like a killer clown guy, and he's an anarchist and he hates society. So what how do we make that happen? And also the Joker's kind of a symbol, and what I actually kind of liked was that all the people in clown masks kind of reminded me of like his henchmen. They kind of worship the Joker and think he's like a real badass. He kind of think Joker is braver than everyone, has a master plan. This does not seem like the clown prince of crime. This version of the Joker does not seem like the criminal mastermind. However, I could see how this version of the Joker could become one. I could see how this version of the Joker could somehow eventually stumble his way into becoming something more like the Dark Knight version of the Joker. But again, this version of Joker is so far removed from any other version of Joker that it's really its own thing, to the point where it's sort of like when you see Super Robot Wars. They do a crossover where they usually put the Neon Genesis Evangelion characters or Evangelion characters in with all the Gundam characters and all the other Super Robot characters, you know? And it's kind of like, wow, like the Evangelion characters really don't fit in with a lot of what's going on here. That's kind of how I feel about this version of the Joker. If this version of the Joker was surrounded with other versions of Batmans and Jokers from different versions of Batman, this version of Joker would not really fit in with any of those other versions. I would love to see this kind of take on something like Batman, but I don't think it would work nearly as well. However, if they did this kind of take on Batman that was more slow, full of drama, and full of like realism, and less about having high octane action and stuff like that, they could easily make that PG-13. There's no reason to put all the R-rated stuff in the movie. In fact, even this movie only was R-rated when it needed to be. It wasn't like they were excessively yelling the F word most of the time. This is not like a stupid man's. This is not like a raunchy 14-year-old kid R-rated movie. This is like, a kind of a mature take on things. And it treats you with respect. And yes, there's blood and stuff, but there's blood when it's appropriate. Yes, there's violence, but it's violence when it's appropriate. Nothing's faked. Everything seems real. And because of that, because it's a slow build to the final punchline, which I love about this movie, that it's all a slow build to the climax. And the climax is when Joker becomes the Joker himself. That's when the movie's at its climax, which is really cool. It's not like he's the Joker throughout the whole movie. When he finally gets to the point where he kills his ex coworker, when he kills that guy who used to work with him, it's at the point now where Joker's kind of like a murderer. Like he's just killing people, and he doesn't care anymore. Like he's like accepted this. Like killing and murder just don't face this man anymore. He's fine with it, and it's when it's becoming more clear that this man's a sociopath, and it's really really good. It's really really cool. He definitely seems like a crazed lunatic in a really cool realistic way. But as I said, it kind of also makes Joker seem like he would never be able to hold his own or stand a chance against Batman at all. But he has some years in time before Bruce Wayne becomes an adult. So because of that, it's possible that this version of Joker will be fine. However, because of this story and its implications, it's really implying that the Joker will have been a known menace that Batman would have already known about before he ever became Batman. It's like even the kid version of the Joker, or the kid version of Batman as Bruce Wayne, he's already probably aware of the Joker. So yeah, it's kind of a weird take on a different angle for Batman. But if they followed this up and made it so where Batman grew up, he was more aware of the Joker, that would be really really cool to see. But we may never get a sequel to this. If we do, it probably won't work. It probably won't work. I mean, let's be real. The whole point of this movie was the slow build up to seeing him become Joker. So if they do a sequel, it'll be like Alien compared to Aliens. Like it'll be like so different. Like seriously, it'll be a completely different movie. It'd be like Terminator compared to Terminator 2, where like the way the stakes and everything's just so much different. Because in Joker 2, he would be Joker from the very beginning. So yeah. Um but yeah, so let's try to go ahead and give this a review number. I have to give this movie. I'm leaning between 8 and 9. Um, but I know Cosmonaut gave it this movie a 10, and I mean, I mean, or no, he didn't give it a 10. So I'm so sorry. Don't pretend I didn't say that. He gave it a 9. He gave it a 9 out of 10, which is very, I would honestly say I pretty much agree and respect with that score. I think I might give it an 8 though, because I really do think the Bruce Wayne stuff was kind of weird, and there's certain points of this movie that I think still don't. I feel like are still a little bit too convenient, and the moral of the story is kind of, what, I didn't understand it at first, but the more I think about it and the more I talk about this movie with people, I really realize how much I actually do enjoy this movie and how much I really did like it because of how it's done. So I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10. I could easily recommend it to people, but I think I'm gonna give this movie a 9 out of 10. But I do want to say this is not like my favorite movie. This is not a movie that people should go out and see if they don't want to. It's just a really well done movie. It's just really well done. I don't think it deserves any of the hype and praise and attention that it's actually getting. I think it's just like pretty good. Like I think it's just it's a good ass movie, but it doesn't deserve all the controversy. However, because it is Joker, um, it's going to get some hype because this is a movie like this done for a character like this, that's a villain of all things. So yeah, I think it's cool. However, sadly, the controversy does boil down to, but Joker's a bad guy. You can't make a movie about a bad guy. It's like, well, they did, and it seemed to work really well. This is probably the best movie using a DC comic book character since like Dark Knight. Like, well, there hasn't been a good DC comic book character movie in a long time. So this is probably the best one since Dark Knight, and it doesn't remind me of Dark Knight. That's the funny thing. It's just like its own thing. It just does its own thing. So really good movie. Although I can't, I have to say I don't hate Wonder Woman. I don't hate Shazam. DC doesn't have only bad movies, but if I could see some more like this, if we get another like really interesting character study kind of movie with another character and it's more realistic and it's kind of done like if it was in the real world, I think that'd be a really great direction for DC movies to go in. I don't want every movie to be like this. So one of my friends said, if only they could do this for Superman now, because no one likes Superman. No, no, no. This movie really works because everyone already likes Joker and knows a lot about Joker. I could possibly see them doing this for Batman or maybe another villain, but even if you did it for another villain, the Joker's the only one who would work this way, where he's like a just like a crazed, guy. He's like a guy who's trying to lie to himself about his own life, and then he eventually kind of becomes unhinged. So, I don't think that could work with every supervillain. Like Penguin, I think has always just been a grimy guy. Two Face, we kind of already got the Two Face story we need to see in Dark Knight, and I think Two Face just works a lot better alongside Batman again, where Batman creates Two Face. Uh, not maybe not completely creates him, but like something Batman does, and getting Harvey Dent really involved. Basically, like Long Halloween. Long Halloween is a really good story for Harvey Dent and Two Face. It's probably one of the most important and like well done stories for Two Face, to the point where in the Arkham games, I'm kind of sad that Two Face is always playing such a bit role in the Arkham games, because in Long Halloween, Two Face is a really good character. Um, and any other character like Riddler or anything like that wouldn't really work for this. Really, this movie only works for Joker, and I would really just like to see Batman movies that have villains in it that we haven't seen much of. Like, I would love to see a Riddler villain movie where Batman is the main character and Riddler's the villain, or something like that. I don't necessarily want to see another movie based on a villain. However, if they did another movie like this in this style that's very realistic, um, it could be done. It could work. It could work. So we'll see what DC does, or really we'll see what Warner Brothers does with DC. So yeah, this movie's a 9 out of 10 from me. I think I'm gonna end it here. I don't think I really need to talk about the controversy too much, other than the fact that everyone who said it was going to be about incel culture, everyone who said it's going to be about white supremacy or anything like that, or it's going to inspire school shooters or shooters in general, I really don't think it did. I think that Batman versus Superman and Dark Knight both featured more murders in them. I think they both featured more senseless killing and glorified killing. And I'm literally not joking, guys. I really do think Batman vs Superman glorified killing people far more than Joker did. And Batman vs Superman, Batman's just like easily he's killing people without even thinking about it. He doesn't even care that he's killing people. He just kills people because fuck them, you know. And I think that's a worse thing to. That's literally telling people that killing is okay if it gets what you want to do done. So I know that might not be the best point because in this movie they're trying to make Joker look more justified in the way he's killing people. But I think honestly this movie is a great justification for why like this movie is okay because its message compared to Batman vs Superman's message like about killing is kind of fair because Joker at one point even says like you people used to walk right past me when I'd be being beaten on the ground, but you care about Thomas Wayne. Fuck you. Like that I have to agree in the sense that in Batman or Superman, Batman just kills people and no one really cares. People think it's fine. I don't agree with that at all. So yeah, that's really really bad. Those movies are so bad it kind of justifies Joker a little bit. But yeah, Joker in this movie, yeah. Um yeah, it's a very good movie, and I recommend it. I recommend it to people who are interested in it. It's hard for me to recommend it to everyone because it is such a dark movie with subject matter that isn't necessarily important for everyone to explore. But it's just a very interesting movie. I don't think it has a profound message. I don't think it has a profound meaning. I just think it's like, oh, it's just like a tragic, sad movie. That's really all it is. It's not trying to be mind breaking, mind blowing. It's not trying to be woke. It's not trying to change your perspective on life. It's really not. It's really not at all. And I really don't think that that's what the directors were intending at all. I think it's just a really well done, sad, depressing movie that features a comic book character who happens to be a villain. And I think this is one of the people act like this movie is really controversial, but I think this movie is actually really tasteful. I think it's done with a lot of respect and tact. I think a lot of things worked for me. So yeah, that's all I have to say is I think it was a good movie, but I understand if people don't want to see it. I understand if people don't like it. Um, there is certain plot points again that kind of made me scratch my head the first time I watched it, and I had to really think about everything to make it all make sense. So I really like this movie. It's one of my favorite R-rated movies, but it's not the kind of movie where like Pulp Fiction's a really good. Pulp Fiction might be my favorite movie, and it's a movie that I'm like, you guys got to see this movie. It's got style, it's got flair. It makes you think, keeps you on the edge of your toes. It's really fucking good. Pulp Fiction's a movie that I want like everyone to see. I don't really want everyone to see Joker. Like I really could care less if people saw Joker or not. I think for me personally, it was just a movie that I personally enjoyed a lot. So it's not the same kind of movie. It's not the same kind of thing where I want people. I'm like, you guys got to see this movie. It's so fantastic. It really won't blow your mind. It won't change your life. It's just a really well done movie. So guess what? And that's all a movie needs to be. It's something that's really really enjoyable. So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm gonna end this one here, and I'll possibly see you guys on the next one.